Kurtzberg, what do you see as the main impact of these new DEHP regulations on the cord blood industry?
So I don't think we know yet for a number of reasons. One, they aren't finalized in the EU, and it is not clear how the US FDA will or will not respond to whatever is decided in the EU. But I think from a practical perspective, assuming that the regulations disallow bags that have these compounds, it will have to be something that moves forward, not backwards. And we will probably have to do some kind of, I'll put it in quotes, but stability studies to show that currently banked units that are in bags that were made with DEHP do not contain a sufficient amount of DEHP to be toxic to a recipient. I also want to mention DEHP is in all kinds of blood bags, IVs, IV tubing. It goes way beyond really the small industry of cryopreserved cord blood. So the impact, if this really comes about, well, again, go way beyond cord blood. It's in Legos. I mean, I watch my little 6-month-old grandson put the Lego in his mouth. And I bet you there's more DEHP in that Lego than there is in a bag of cord blood should he ever need it, God forbid. But I think this is incredibly complicated. If this were to occur and if new bags are going to be required in the cord blood industry for both collection of cord blood and cryopreservation of cord blood and all the processing kits that are involved in separating and volume reducing cord blood, that is going to require a complete revalidation of all the methods of manufacturing that the banks are currently using, which would probably require 6 to 12 months of experiments, then 6 months or more of FDA review and hopefully approval, and then redoing the whole stability program for the cord blood units that are now banked in the new bags. And that's not a small feat because in order to have an inventory that's old enough to actually give you any time of stability studies, you have to actually plan ahead of time and be freezing units before you have sent your validation study to the FDA and before they have approved it. Otherwise, when you start manufacturing, you have no stability on your clock and you can't release the unit. So there's a lot of complexity to this that may or may not have been thought through yet. And obviously needs to be brought to the attention of the regulators should this move forward.
If this were to become a reality and the cord blood industry has to face this item, in your best assumption, what would be the time frame be under which cord blood banks in reality can implement a new bag system? This is not months, this is years, I would assume.
I would say a minimum of 2 years and likely longer.
Okay. And then, as you mentioned before, that public cord blood banks in the US are FDA licensed, that would imperil the licensure status of those units. So there could, in principle, be a lag period for the production of licensed units. Am I correct?
Yeah, there'll be a lag between switching to and validating whatever the new bag systems are. And again, this would be both collection and processing and cryopreservation because it's in all of the materials used for those activities. So you'd have to do a complete revalidation of all of those processes. And then again, because of timelines required by FDA these days, it's a minimum of a 6-month review after you submit your validation. And then you can't really start collecting banking units under your new protocol that will be eligible for your license until FDA signs off. And then again, if you don't have sort of a backlog of units for stability testing, even though you may have these new units that are manufactured under your validation protocol, you don't have any proof that they're okay for a day, a week, a year, a month, if you know what I mean. So you have to think of putting together and, having in the background a couple hundred units or whatever it's going to be for the stability testing in order for you to enable release of the units you collect under your new protocol. So it's really complicated. And yes, it will definitely stress banks and cause delays. But again, it's not just a banking problem. I mean, it's in
Well,
IV bags. Normal saline comes in a bag with the same component. So I think there'll have to be a global approach.